Yep, that's how it felt. What up everyone, I am Gallon Havoc and welcome back to Havoc's Horror Show, where we talk all things spooky or just dark and edgy, just the way I like it. So I'm sure you've all heard the news. Metroid Dread is out and has been taking the world by storm. With great reviews across the board, it's safe to say Metroid is back with a vengeance. So now to give my 2 cents on it. And like a lot of others, I love this game. Allow me a bit of story time here. I've been a fan of Metroid and further the Metroidvania style of games for years. The first Metroidvania I ever played was Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which is also now on the Switch as part of the Advanced Collection. So I also picked that up recently as well. But back to the point. Circle of the Moon quickly made me realize how much I loved that style of game. A side-scroller platformer, with plenty of combat and plenty of secrets and items to find throughout. Then I went and played Metroid Prime 2 Echoes on the GameCube, which brought that style of gameplay not only to 3D, but to first person as well. And boy did I ever love Metroid Prime 2. I played as Samus on Smash Bros. Lots throughout the years, but Echoes was the game that really got me wanting to explore the rest of the franchise. And explore I did. And wow, are these games ever fun. Not you. Definitely not you. But since Metroid Fusion, the side-scroller Metroid games were kind of up in the air, until the very successful remake, Samus Returns on the 3DS. And 19 years after Fusion, from the shadows, came the long-thought-dead sequel, Metroid Dread, which was actually initially planned for the original Nintendo DS, but was cancelled. The most we ever saw of it was a little Easter egg in Metroid Prime 3, but like I said before, it came back, and damn, what a comeback it was. Metroid Dread takes the gameplay formula of the classic Metroid games with the new touch of Mercury's team, who previously worked on Samus Returns, and imagine my shock that they also worked on both Castlevania Lords of Shadow 1 and 2. And I really liked Lords of Shadow 2, even though a lot of people seem to hate it for some reason. I will never understand that. They add more emphasis on combat than the older games, with a more freeform aiming style as well as the melee counter, which my god is a lifesaver. Especially since in Dread you can now move as you counter, making the combat that much more fluid. But the emphasis on combat does not take away from the classic reward of exploration. Dread's world of ZDR is full of blinking and miss it secret items in areas that allow you to upgrade your abilities. The classic missile tanks, energy tanks, bomb upgrades, as well as your abilities are all sprinkled throughout and are literally everywhere as long as you know where to look and when to look for them. That being said, some of the puzzles to find said upgrades can be very tedious. Don't even get me started on shine sparking. That's a mechanic that takes a bit to get the hang of. Hell, even for Metroid veterans. And like the Metroid games of old, you do need to do quite a bit of backtracking as you gather your abilities, opening previously inaccessible areas. Which again, can be very tedious, but worthwhile. And with the word tedious in mind, it brings me to one of Dread's biggest elements. This game is hard. Metroid games were always considered the more difficult games in Nintendo's repertoire, and Dread cranks it and lives up to its name. For example, the Emmys. These robots who chase you, Mr. X, Nemesis, Lady Dimitrescu style. Upon detection, they're almost impossible to kill by normal means. When they catch you, you literally have a fraction of a second to counter and stun it, or it's game over. The amount of times these things got me was frustrating. But the Emmys aren't the only dreadful thing you have to watch out for. A lot of the boss fights, especially later in the game, are borderline Souls-like levels of frustrating. Not quite Souls-like, but almost. But like the Souls games, the satisfaction to defeating these bosses is unparalleled, especially when a few of them have this kind of badassery to finish them off. I do kind of wish there was an easy mode, but that would ultimately take the thrill out of a lot of things in the game. I do, however, dread trying this game on hard mode, which I might do in the future, or I might not. The gameplay is phenomenal, if tedious and borderline infuriating sometimes, but in the end, it's definitely all worth it. With gameplay aside, let's talk what all Metroid games, save for Other M, have in common, and Dread has in spades: atmosphere. Teetering on wonder and horror, Dread's duality is truly a spectacle. While being 2D, but still extremely cinematic, the game does a great job balancing the two, knowing exactly when to shift, especially during a few, albeit very important character moments with Samus. Which is another thing. Metroid games were always known for their simplistic but very compelling stories, and Dread, again, does that in spades. Being the last in the chronology, you'd think you would need to play the past games, but luckily enough, Dread sets the stage right from the start with a good structured understanding on what Samus has been through on past missions, with her eradication of the Metroids, her bouts with the space pirates, and her experience with the X-Parasite. It's all given to you right from the start in a way that would not confuse anybody or even bore them. Speaking of past events, I was so happy to see Kraid back, whose boss battle screamed of Zero Mission, which was a nice nod to the classics. Slight spoiler, but I do kind of wish Ridley made an appearance. But then again, his reputation was kind of tarnished in Other M. Maybe we'll see him in Metroid Prime 4. Maybe. Anyway, with all that out of the way, I am giving Metroid Dread a gallant rating of 9 out of 10. With its only real flaws being its difficulty at some points and the tedious puzzles, not to mention locking bonus content behind essentially speedrunning the game, it's still not enough to overly hinder how I feel about it. The game is a resounding success, and I am super happy to see Metroid come back in the way it did. That being said, I do really hope to see more side-scrolling Metroid games in the future, but I'm willing to bet Prime 4 is the primary focus right now, whenever that comes out. But in the meantime, folks, I'm Gallon Havoc, and I'll see you in the next episode of Havoc's Horror Show.